Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at OnWrd UpWrd, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast powered by OnWrd UpWrd, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started. As OnWrd UpWrd approaches almost 6 years in business, I've been reflecting a lot on where this all started. The conversations, the ideas, the frustrations, and truly the excitement that led Meghan and me to take the leap to build this company in the first place. So today, we're revisiting the very first episode of this podcast, back when it was still called the Association 100, and we were recording in the common space at my apartment building. Listening back now is a little surreal. Some things about our industry have changed dramatically over the last few years, especially around communications, media, AI, and how associations connect with their members. But what struck me most is how much of our original why still holds true today. This episode is less polished than what you hear from us now, but it's real. It's two association comms professionals talking very candidly about the work we loved, the challenges we saw, and why we believed associations deserved agency partners who would truly roll up their sleeves and become extensions of their teams. I hope you enjoy this throwback conversation. And for those of you who've joined the podcast more recently, I hope it gives you a better sense of the heart behind OnWrd UpWrd and Association Insights. So now, let's rewind it all the way back to episode 1. Welcome to our first episode of the Association 100 podcast. I'm Colleen Gallagher, and I'm joined by Meghan Henning. We are the publishers of the Association 100 and also the founders of OnWrd UpWrd marketing and communications firm based here in Alexandria, Virginia. Today's episode will be all about getting to know us. So, Meghan, why don't you kick us off with some work background, and we'll get to the interesting stuff after that.
I have been in DC for a long time. I started out in technology at a telecommunications firm and went to MCI and then eventually went to an internet company because that's how old I am. The internet was coming out when I was working. And then I went to the Consumer Technology Association, and talk about a fun job. I was there for a little over six years, and then headed to the Global Business Travel Association, which was also a super fun association. And then we started OnWrd UpWrd.
Awesome. So I came down to DC for grad school. I had just wrapped up my journalism degree from SUNY Brockport, and I decided to go straight to grad school and switch to the PR side of things. I think, really there were definitely some journalism openings I could get, but at that point, I think PR was kind of the direction I wanted to go in, and I just didn't realize it until after I had finished the degree. So I went to American University, got my degree in public communication. It was a 1-year program, which was great. And then that is where we connected at Consumer Technology Association. And from there, I feel like we just have not been able to stop working together. I had a quick layover at the Biotechnology Industry Organization, worked there for about 1.5 years before coming over to Global Business Travel Association, which we were there for, I think I was there for 8 of the 10 years you were there. And then did a quick stint at a PR agency before we got OnWrd UpWrd up and running. And the rest is history.
Which is awesome. So what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Okay, so this is super hokey, but it really has served me well. And it's when you're having to give constructive criticism to do the compliment sandwich and start with something positive, come in with the negative and the constructive piece, and then end with another positive. And I think I seriously learned that when I was like 10 years old from my mom about like telling someone something I was nervous to tell them. But it still works. And it's such a good way to deliver a difficult message without ruffling any feathers and with actually being effective and causing that person to listen and accept that feedback.
That is great advice. I'm going to have to start paying attention for when you give me a compliment sandwich.
Oh no, the secret's out. All right, well, we'll stick with some of the interesting stuff here. So tell me, who's someone you admire?
Well, this might sound hokey, but I'm going to say that I admire my mother. My mother worked pretty much. She was home for a while, and then she went back to work, and she had a pretty big job. And we got to see it. She used to bring us to different things. She would get up and give speaking engagements and stuff like that, which is, as you know, is something I do not like doing.
It's not your favorite thing?
Not my favorite thing.
That's
I like
right.
to be, the woman behind the woman, not the woman. But I admire her because she used to say too that, that public speaking made her a little nervous, but she just went ahead and did it. And she would bring us along and we would get to see her sort of face her fear. And, when I think about the different times that I've had to get up and speak in public, I often think about her. So she's who I admire.
I love that.
Yeah, thanks. She'll be proud. So what's your favorite thing to do in DC?
Well, you will not be surprised, but I'm a runner. And so this is like the perfect city for that. I've traveled all over Virginia, DC, Maryland on foot. And I think it's such a cool place to get to see that way and a way to experience the city, whether it's running by monuments. I think people are surprised by how much nature there is in DC too, like running around Teddy Roosevelt Island or, Rock Creek Park, different areas like that. It's just a great area to experience that way. And I'm also directionally challenged, and having run all over the city, I can actually find my way around now. Whereas if you just tried to put me in a car to do that, I would be lost every time. What about you?
I think my favorite thing about DC is to pretend I'm a tourist. I have a DC, a photos book as if I were a tourist. And a lot of times on a Saturday or Sunday, we will just pick something and go see it. Whether it's the Arboretum, which I hadn't been to. I'd lived here for years, never even heard of it. And I went up there, and I also love on a Saturday morning to get up very early, that's not the part I love. But I love to get up on a Saturday morning and head down to the mall and walk the whole length of the mall, because I think it's beautiful. I think there's tons of people out. There's dogs, people with baby strollers. And I just sort of like that. It feels like a camaraderie. And it doesn't then feel like a big city. It sort of just feels like a town. And I like that a lot.
Well, and I love that, like, experiencing a tourist, and you have a 10-year-old. So I think, it must be awesome to experience it through her eyes and what she's seeing.
And, things that you take for granted when you're, at the Lincoln Memorial. I don't know how many times you might have read all of the words, but when you do have a 10-year-old who is learning about Abraham Lincoln, you're going to read them a whole lot more and find so much more interesting aspects of DC that I might have just glossed over. So she does a good job of pointing that out. That'll soon be on your radar as well.
Yes. So we'll get there soon. I've got a 1-year-old, so she's on her way. All right. Well, this is the A100 podcast, so we should probably talk a little bit about associations and PR while we're here. So we both have a ton of association experience, obviously, but tell me about a project you loved while working for an association.
Oh, it's hard to narrow it down, but one of the biggest projects that I think I've ever worked on, it was an all-encompassing bus tour when I worked at the Consumer Technology Association, and we were dealing with trade and, talking about what is manufactured in the United States and stuff like that. And the thing that was so great about it was within the Consumer Technology Association, I got to work with the government affairs team, the membership team, but then literally pretty much all of our members, they wanted to be a part of it. And we put together a physical bus that started, we opened up in New York, and we went to one of our member companies' manufacturing sites, which was super cool. We went into New York City and had it kick off with Mayor Bloomberg, who was the mayor of New York at the time, which was great. And then we literally went down the East Coast. We went to all the ports, even on the West Coast. And it was just such a cool example of an association coming together, bringing its members together, talking about the issues that really impacted them, and coming up with a solution and then putting it into play. And it was just an amazing experience, and one that I don't think I would ever forget.
Yeah. When you have your members like chomping at the bit for something like that to be involved, and then truly like shining and getting to show like what they do, that's when you know you've done it. Like
and they loved it.
Right note.
Yeah. Yes, they really, you start off thinking, oh, will anybody be interested in this? And then it gets to a point where you have this spreadsheet and there are so many names and so many time slots that they just got filled up. It was just such a great experience.
Yeah.
How about you? What's a project that you loved?
So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to go with 2. I can't narrow it down. I just can't. So we both worked on the Navigator Awards at GBTA.
Oh, yes.
And that was one of my favorites because one, it came together so quickly.
Yes.
We had proposed this and had to wait to get board approval. So once we got the go ahead, it was, I think, 10 days out from our legislative summit.
Yes.
And we were able to put together this awards program where we picked 10 congressional champions that were different members on both sides of the aisle who supported travel and business travel in particular. We came up with a way to work with all of their comm staffs. So we had to, get contact info, navigate their comm staffs. We were able to get press lists in all of those cities so we could get press out there.
Yes,
we had a national press.
Awesome.
We rolled out a major initiative at the same time. We called it our Rules of the Road. It was just all of these different moving pieces came together so quickly. And then it was a huge success. Like you said, you didn't know if you were going to get any response.
Right.
The members of Congress were thrilled to get awards. So we heard from them right away. And we got, real awards we handed over to them. We got pictures with our leaders, with these different members, got to go to their offices on the Hill, which helped build those relationships. We built relationships with their comms teams. It was a really cool project. And I think I just always loved advocacy comms too. So that holds a special place in my heart for that one. But my all-time favorite was the GBTA studio and the work around that. And it started small with just a studio that I begged for at our convention.
Yes. And taught yourself how to use.
Yeah, we built it by the end. We had a massive studio that became like one of the centerpieces of the convention. We filmed 130 interviews over 4 days there. I built a studio when our office moved and learned how to use all the equipment. It was fully capable of everything from member interviews when they were in town to doing a full satellite media tour. And then we could bring it on the road. And that was just so much fun. We brought it to all of our events globally. So we went to Canada, went to Europe, went to Mexico. I even did the live switching for interviews in Spanish, which I'm really glad my 11 years of Spanish lessons. Good thing Catholic school started me early in kindergarten there. So it came back to me. But the studio is by far one of my favorite things to work on. And it really, I think one of the coolest things was when down the road, when we would start Googling the CEOs that we would be interviewing, the things that would pop up first on when you Google their name was interviews at our studio from previous years. And
which was just amazing.
That content had become, so important. And it was really cool to see how that came together and to get to work on that over the years.
And I feel like one of the great things about that was putting together the questions, because you learned so much about that member company that to this day, I feel like when I hear these different member company names, I'm like, oh, I remember researching them so that we could ask them these questions. And I think also that was worth doing was they weren't softball questions.
Right.
It wasn't an ad. For them, it was some tough questions, some trend questions, but it was an interesting interview. It wasn't just a commercial.
Yeah, and that made a big difference.
Yeah.
Because we weren't just saying, hey, what do you want to promote? We were saying, you've got to come here and talk about the industry and what's going on and what's next and what people need to know.
Yes.
And that you had to produce worthwhile content, or you're just producing content for content's sake.
Right. It was great. So speaking of that, what are some of the challenges you faced while working in an association, and how did you overcome them?
I think having been at 3 associations, I think a lot of association, especially comms professionals, can relate to this, but you're navigating a lot of stakeholders all the time.
Oh, yes.
Within the staff itself, you're trying to help, the events team, the membership teams, the advocacy team, everyone get their message out, and you've got to balance that. And then you have, the great thing about associations is that you have passionate, involved members. And the terrible thing about associations is you have passionate, involved members.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I loved members at all the associations I worked at, but they want to be involved, and they should be. They're the lifeblood of an association. And I think what I learned was you've got to over communicate all the time.
Yeah.
And you've got to say, what's the ROI and what's in it for you, for every stakeholder.
Yes.
And you've got to do that up front so that people understand this is important, and then things just happen and there's not roadblocks, and it's a lot easier to get things done and to actually be able to, accomplish your objectives and move forward with things, rather than that feeling of just being stuck trying to get approval and trying to move forward all the time.
Well, and I think you said the key word, which is ROI. Why are you doing this? What will you get from it? Because I do think at times when you're challenged in a time capacity, you could start throwing things at the wall to figure out what are you doing, because you think you need to react. And it is always better to just like take the moment. What are we doing? Why is this going to benefit the association? How will this benefit the members? So I think you really, hit that on the head.
Yeah. Well, so let's take that a little further. Tell me, what do you think was something unique that you got out of working at an association versus a corporation or an agency?
Again, I probably would build off of what you said. I think it's a balancing act to try. You are taking so many people's interests and having to balance it. I think working in an association makes you an excellent listener. Mm-hmm. You are going to listen to the executive team. You're going to listen to the people doing some of the groundwork. You're going to listen to the members. You have to sometimes then incorporate what is happening in Congress if you're dealing with the advocacy and the whole industry. So I think it makes you a good listener. And I think that what is unique in that respect is, again, the balancing. How do you get to communicate what you need to communicate to all of these people and bring them together? Yeah. I do think like you end up with stronger diplomacy skills. You end up with great listening skills. You end up with the balancing act of how can you do all of this together and still achieve an outcome that's both good for your association and members that might even have competing interests, which is also challenging. So I think those are the main unique things that I would say. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think the other thing for me, and being in the communications seat again, is that with associations, you get a leeway to do a lot of things. Yes. And it's almost like I used to, when I first worked at CEA then, I would try to explain, because back home no one knew what an association was, even though there's a million here. But it was like I got to be my own mini PR firm for every issue. And also something I don't think in bigger companies you necessarily get. And we were at big associations. I mean, GBTA was also a very small staff. It was the two of us for a lot of time till we finally got to bring some help on. But at CTA, we had a comms team of, 13, 15 people. So, it was a good sized staff, but still they let me try things, even in my early 20s, as I would come up with ideas. I wanted to interview the CEO for an internal comms project every week and have him on camera talking to people. And that wasn't something they'd done, but it was like, hey, let's try it.
Yes.
GBTA, they just kind of let me run and try all new things. Like I said, the studio. We launched they didn't have a blog there. We launched that. We launched a podcast. Just that ability to say, hey, this is something we need to be doing, and to be allowed to go try that and do that.
Yes.
I think is something, in associations that you get, because there is that like scrappy, you got to just do stuff.
Yes.
You have limited resources. And so you got to get work done. And if someone puts forth a plan and is willing to do the work, usually they're going to let them. So that was something I found really unique about working in an association.
That being able to be creative is such a great, is a great thing about working with in an association.
Yeah. So now we're on the other side of the table.
Yes.
Working at an agency. Tell me what made you want to do this? Like, what? I mean, we obviously talked about it for a long time, but.
Yes. So you and I have talked about it for a long time. And as I've said this to you many times, you are my professional soulmate because we get along in so many ways. But I think that you and I have sat in so many meetings with PR consultants who are just, they're great. They're filled with tons of expertise, and they would give us a whole laundry list of fantastic ideas. You and I would be so excited. And then they would leave the meeting and we would realize we did not have another 8 hours in the day to do all of those things. And we used to think, why isn't anyone doing it? Like, they come up with the idea, but we needed them to do it. So again, during a pandemic, it's an awesome time to start your own business.
I mean, why not?
You have nothing to lose, right? So when we, I think we sat outside on my back porch and said, well, what if we did the work? What if we did it? Because we actually liked doing the work.
Right.
We just needed more time. So we thought that was going to differentiate us. We would do the work. It's our tagline. It's on stuff. And I think that's what sets us apart from from other agencies. And I think that like wanting to be an extension of someone's team, I think really has resonated for us, because we do know associations. We know that somebody is, maybe there's one person in their communications department and they've been tasked with, hey, why don't you set up a podcast? Why don't you set up a blog? We'd like you to redo the website. We also want you to send out these press releases, and we would like you to figure out pitches for all this stuff. And that person is going to be excited to do all of that, but there's just not enough time.
It was always about the team members. I mean, I remember even when we first added our comms manager at GDK, and what a world of difference.
Oh my gosh.
And she was able to do many things, but then you find more things to do.
Yes.
So you just always need
there's always more to
extra,
do.
Yes. Boots on the ground. And I feel like that's what we can offer for people. And
I
and
agree.
Knowing associations and how they work, that, really gives us a leg up on that front.
I definitely think so. So what are you most excited about in terms of the A100?
So I think what I love about associations is there truly is an association for everything.
Yes.
I live here in Old Town. We work in Old Town, and you walk down Washington Street, Prince Street, you name it. And it's like, wait, that's an association?
Yes.
Like, are you kidding me? But I love it. And they all do incredibly unique things. Mm-hmm. I think one thing we've run into is we've started to meet more of local associations at the state level. We have a Northern Virginia client. We have a Tennessee client. And what they're doing. I mean, they do some really tremendous work, and talk about on small resources for these local associations. But for me, what's exciting is getting to meet all these people and talk to them and see what they're doing and a lot of association professionals are just really innovative because you have to be.
Yes.
You've got to prove your member ROI. You've got to show your value. And if you're not doing something new, especially with younger millennials and Gen Z coming out, like they're not automatically thinking I need to join this professional association. So, you got to be creative, and it's really cool to think about like being able to talk to these leaders and see what they're doing and how they're, changing the way they do things to react to this new reality that we're in.
I would agree. I just think that you end up with a lot of people who are very passionate about what they do, and they end up being housed in an association because you are, for the same reasons that you mentioned before, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot you can get to do, and you get the permission to be creative. You don't, when I was at MCI, the joke was that there would be a 3-hour focus group as to whether we were going to order pizza. And after 3 hours, the answer would be no. So, you're just so confined in certain other organizations. And I don't think you're confined, as you are in an association. And I think it's going to be really fun to explore that in the A100.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously association world is changing, but what about PR? That's obviously changed drastically over the past few years.
Yes. So when I was beginning my career, the two main staples of all PR was the press release was king. And you could spend 3 weeks on a press release.
Wow.
You could send it to your legal department. And it went through so many iterations, and then it was your website. Websites were just coming about, and, people were trying to figure out, hey, what should be on the website and what should it look like and all of that. And while that still goes on today, it was a very new concept. I will say in some respects, it was a little easier because if you just had to write a press release for a week, that's great.
Yeah.
Now it's crowded, and there's so many platforms to get your information on and from. And I feel like that is its own challenge. It's even a challenge for me when you're listing all of the social applications. You and I have had this conversation. I did not think LinkedIn was considered a social platform. I don't know what I would have labeled it, but I would have said, no.
I think that's a big shift in the last few years, maybe the last 5 years,
yes.
Is that it was more of a job search platform. Now it's very much a content platform.
Yes. And I feel that, you had, the other thing is you had a set number of journalists who'd been covering issues for years. And so I remember starting at the Consumer Technology Association and being handed a binder that had all of the journalists for the different areas. And it's not, and I called them up and introduced myself and, said, like, here's what's going on. And they came to CTA and did that, like asked for information. But now it's just, you have people that don't just cover one beat, they can cover 5. And I think that what we've seen, and you and I have talked about this, that all of the lines have blurred. Like there's advertising and advocacy, marketing, communications. It's very hard to figure out what is just strictly PR. Because to me at this point, PR is all of this. It's getting your message out. But how do you get your message out? Is that, traditional marketing emails are now, part of the PR establishment, and how, changing all of that over the years. And it changes in some respects on a week to week basis, which, can be really challenging for, PR professionals to try to keep up, especially if you're just one person with all of this. To keep up on all of this, it's challenging.
Yeah. I mean, PR and marketing teams have to be more connected than ever. There's no more, you can't have the ownership fights. No. Or it's just not going to work. You've got to have good synergy there and work together. And then you mentioned the journalists. I mean, they move around so much. They're doing so much. There's fewer journalists. They're asked to cover more. They have to do so many more stories a day, even, not even a week, than they used to. And so you have the challenge of a journalist who might not be an expert on the topic, but you only have, 5 minutes of their time to get your message out and what this is about in the background. And it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. It really has become a challenge. And it's a challenge for journalists, to be able to keep up with what is going on. And I do think you're right with, the marketing and communications and the advocacy people. They really have to all have a good synergy and good energy and realize that they're all in this together, because the outcome is going to depend on a portion of all of them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I imagine we'll be talking a lot more about this on future episodes.
Absolutely.
And with different association professionals that we bring on. But let's wrap up with some fun stuff.
Okay.
We're going to go to our lightning round. So you're up first.
Awesome.
All right. So where'd you grow up?
Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of Joe Biden and the show The Office.
Yes. All right. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
Definitely not. I'd like to be one of those people that says, oh, of course, I would just do, something. But no, no, I'm not working. I'm going to be on an island.
Awesome. All right. Favorite movie or TV show?
Oh, well, The Office, Arrested Development.
Oh, so good.
And right now, Ted Lasso.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Ted Lasso is just amazing.
Yes.
So
I hope
good.
It goes on forever.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. Lots of them. Specifically golden doodles.
Perfect. And then what's something you miss from the pre-pandemic days?
Probably business travel and some kind of informal happy hours where you could just grab a drink with somebody on the way out from work. I kind of miss those.
Yeah.
All right. So how about you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up just outside of Syracuse, New York, in a suburb called Fayetteville, Manlius.
Nice. And I know you're a huge Syracuse fan.
Oh, yes.
If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
I would not. I think most people would be surprised.
I would be surprised. I thought for sure you'd say yes.
But no, I am always amazed by people that are well, I'd be bored. Because I have so many things I would do.
Yes.
One, I would run all the time. but also, I just want to go everywhere. There's so many places still on my list to travel to. I would just explore all the time. And living in DC, there's a million places I would want to go back to again and again. So
absolutely.
So I know that doesn't seem like me, but I would not work.
I'm excited to now think that I know something different. I was totally not going to say, I was going to say, you were going to say, no, I was definitely going to keep working. All right. Your favorite movie or TV show?
So I'm with you with Ted Lasso right now. That's definitely the best thing on TV.
Yes.
Hands down.
So happy.
All time, I think what I keep coming back to is 30 Rock. It's just my comfort food TV. I can watch that when I'm in a bad mood, when I'm in a good mood, anytime. And it just makes me laugh and smile. And I've seen it so many times. I can't even count. I can say it word for word as they're going. But that's probably my all-time favorite.
It's a good one. Dogs or cats?
Dogs all the way. I got my little Otto. He's a mini dachshund that looks like a beagle. It's hilarious.
He's so cute. So what's something you miss from the pre-pandemic days?
So even though I have been starting to travel again, but that full on being able to travel and not having that worry, especially with a 1-year-old, I feel guilty because it's like, well, what if I did bring, COVID home and
Yes.
I am vaccinated and boosted, but still like there's that worry.
Yes.
I would like to just travel worry free again and to not have it be all these considerations and like thinking about the testing and what you have to do to get places. So I think that's my biggest thing.
Yes, I would agree with that. It would be nice to just travel freely, free of worry. Definitely. All right. Well, I feel like this is it.
Yeah.
This is our first podcast for the A100. This was really fun. And I learned something new about you. I didn't think that was going to be possible.
After all these years. Awesome. Well, thanks, Meghan, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights podcast, powered by OnWrd and UpWrd, is a production of OnWrd and UpWrd Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a weekly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words of wisdom from the trenches of association life? Well, we want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupwrd.com. That's info@onwrdupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association inspiration and insights. Thanks for tuning in.